Hello and welcome to my review for the 2024 summer season. And let me tell you, this was not my season. I haven't completely finished any of the shows yet. I think most of them are still airing at the time of me making this. But so far, it has been a struggle for me to get through it. I am just not interested in anything that I am currently watching. But like I said, none of them are finished yet as of me watching this. So hey, maybe something changes between now and then. I don't know. We'll see. But I have watched a few older shows, as in they didn't air this season. I have watched a few older shows that I am far more interested in talking about. So I guess we'll go ahead and get the exciting ones out of the way. Also, spoiler alert for these shows, I guess. I'm going to go ahead and put the list and the time stamps for all of the shows that I watched. I think this will probably make it a little easier in case you're looking for a specific one or just wanting to skip certain ones, and it's easier to see which one is where. Golden Time. Okay, this show is like a decade old, which I do try to go back and watch shows that I may have missed. And I had heard that this was a good romance. I'm not sure if I agree or not. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this show, so I'm just going to talk and we're just going to end up where we end up. All right, I'm going to break this up into beginning, middle, and end. So, in the beginning, I hated the main characters, like the two main boy and girl. So, the girl is just so annoying. I do not see how anybody liked her, but the guy also comes off as just love struck. Like he was just wanting to fall in love with anyone. I mean, the only thing that he knew about this girl was that she was hot, she was overly possessive, and she was a bitch to the one other girl that he met. And he looked at that and saw, yep, that's what I want. It's literally just because she was hot. I don't understand how he could talk to her and then come to the conclusion that he liked her without that being the main factor. And that ridiculousness mixed with like all the other things that were happening at the beginning made this come off as more of a good bad kind of comedy or show. Like I was watching it and laughing and cringing at just how fucking stupid a lot of things were happening. And I was very confused because I thought this was going to be like a romance, and that's not what I was getting at the beginning as they were trying to set everything up. And then as the story progressed and we get kind of like halfway through into the middle, I there was a switch that I didn't really notice until after the fact. And I became genuinely interested in watching their relationship grow. This was in a college setting, so I think that was a much better idea than the typical high school kind of relationship, which I think is the reason why a lot of people like the show, is because they put it in a more mature setting. And I do think that is a positive for the show. Um, you see them have like typical relationship drama that just kind of happens at the beginning of a relationship as you're kind of working things out. And their communication wasn't great, but it was there. They actually tried to talk through some of their problems, and it was refreshing to see a decent start of a relationship and have them actually, be a normal relationship. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They're still flawed characters, but I can understand people watching this and seeing a decent romance anime. I do think they excelled really well in this middle part here. And then the end comes. And I am still not completely sure my thoughts are on this, because the ending, it's it's not exactly pulled out of their ass. Like they hinted at what was going to happen earlier on in the show, but it still felt somewhat forced. I don't know. I'm trying not to spoil too much about this, but I may end up just saying a little bit anyway. In my opinion, what I think would have been a better ending is they could have kept the whole thing with his memories and had him show up in his hometown at the end, last episode, and have him on the bridge and have Coco walk up and introduce herself or something, and that be the spark that regains his memories, because that's what they did throughout the entire show before this point, or the couple of times that it happened. Her name is what kind of brought him to his current self, I guess, or his new self. I'm not really sure how to distinguish those two, but that what brought his memories back. So I feel like that would have been the better thing. It kind of felt like they threw in the whole thing with his memories reverting just to revert it back, and I don't know. It just, again, I'm not completely sure how I feel about the ending. I'm not a huge fan of it. I feel like they could have done it better, but I don't think it's a terrible idea. I don't know. I don't. Let's just move on past that. So overall, I actually like this show, but not because I think it's a good show. What I liked about it is this was entertaining. This was very entertaining from the beginning, just laughing about how stupid and ridiculous it is, to the middle part where watching the actual romance stuff, to the ending, which was just what the fuck. Every step was fun to watch. Like, it was entertaining for me to watch because I went in with the expectation of it being a romance. Got that flipped upside down watching the beginning, only to have it brought back in the middle, and then thrown out at the end. Like, it wasn't completely thrown out, but you get what I mean. Hopefully. So overall, yes, I do think this was an actually good show. I don't know about being a good romance though. Like, the beginning of it I can kind of dismiss. I mean, they're setting things up, not a big deal. The middle part of it was great as a romance. So that is where I think most people kind of take the idea that this is a good romance, because I think this is a good representation. But the ending kind of throws things off for me, and it's not a bad ending. I don't want to make it sound like I think it's a terrible ending. I just don't think it's a very good ending. So that's my confused thoughts on my opinion of the show. Hopefully it made some sense. Dungeon Meshi. This show was hot when it came out last season. So I feel like I had to watch it in order to see what all the hype was around it. And let me say, I did not enjoy it. Okay, let me clarify my point on this. I can 100% see why people like this show. I think it does a great job with the fantasy genre, and I think it does a great job with the cooking genre. Yeah. And I think it does a great job of blending the two together. My only issue is that I'm not big on cooking shows. So that is half of the anime that I wasn't really a huge fan of. Like, anytime the fantasy stuff came up, I really enjoyed it. But then as soon as they start talking about the cooking and everything, I kind of wanted just to skip over it. And then in the later episodes, I did actually start skipping over it. But I understand, like, me watching this, I understand why other people would like it. It's just kind of me personally not liking it. But I don't think you can completely take out the cooking aspect of this show. I think it is a very integral part of the entire story. So, because of that, the entire show itself wasn't really as good for me. It didn't hit the same spots that I think it did for other people. Because other people, I completely understand why other people would like this show. I'm not saying it's a bad show at all. I actually think it's a good show. It just wasn't good for me personally. So I think if you like fantasy and cooking shows, this is an absolutely amazing show. But I think if you're even on the fence or don't like cooking shows, then this is kind of iffy, because that's kind of where I am. I don't specifically hate cooking shows, but I don't enjoy them either, which is why I don't particularly enjoy half of this show. So I think this is kind of a coin flip on whether you'll like it or not. It's kind of hard for me to say, but that's my opinion. Shit, here I am trying to move on without talking about the rest of it. So the story, I think, is fine. It's very slow rolled. Like, you don't get a whole lot of it. Takes the 24 episodes to actually work through the little bit of story that we get, which that in and of itself I think is fine. My only real issue with the story is there's a mismatch of urgency, I guess would be the way to put it, because they act like they need to get there like fast, but then every episode is them taking their time, and then it just has a weird feel to it, I guess. The fights weren't over the top or anything, but they were still enjoyable to watch, and the adventuring and the dungeon crawling aspect of it was definitely the best part of it for me. I liked all the resource management and all of that stuff because I'm a fucking nerd. And that's part of the reason why that I won't really complain too much about them adding in all the food stuff because I get it. It's just not for me. But overall, it's a decent show. Oshinoko season 2. Season 2 is a lot like season 1. So I think if you like the first season, you'll end up liking this season 2. I mean, the art style is still amazing. The voice acting is still great. The story is, we'll say, entertaining. Overall, I'm still enjoying the show, but there is one thing that I want to complain about. During the first season, I saw a few comments basically talking about how complicated it is, or there's too much stuff going on. And for the first season, I can kind of let that go. I mean, I agree there's a lot going on, but it's first season, they're setting things up. I can kind of let it not be as focused as later seasons would normally be. But I started to feel that for this season. Like they had the whole play, I guess it was, and that was pretty great to watch. That was really entertaining. And then after that, they switched over back to the murder mystery aspect of it. And then the last episode, they throw in some other random plot point. And by the time that I finished, it did start to feel like they were doing too much. Like I don't think it's at that point just yet because everything is still connected. So I can see the story continuing just fine. But I'm starting to get the feeling that they want to do a little too much. And I think that it can, I don't know if it will, but I think that it can get to the point to where they are just focusing on too many different plot points, and then it just the entire show just becomes less entertaining at that point. And this is a complaint that I haven't read the manga. I have no idea how the story is going to progress from here. So this is my uneducated take on this. So it could be that the next season starts and they end up tying everything together, and it's not really an issue. I have no idea. So I guess maybe this is more of a worry than a complaint because I don't think it's gotten to the point that it's affecting the show a whole lot. I still enjoyed watching the play. I still enjoy watching the murder mystery part of it. I worried that it's going to end up fucking up at the end. But so far, still great. I still enjoy watching it, and I'll end up watching the next season. Slime Isekai Season 3. Okay, let me be honest. I am pretty done with this show. I was so bored watching this season that I don't know if I could really say whether this was a good season or not. I personally just could not make it through any of it. I mean, the beginning I think was kind of okay, but I found myself kind of skipping over a lot of it and just getting the highlights because I just did not want to keep watching the show. And I don't have a huge issue with political drama. I think it can be done well. I don't think that Slime is doing it well at all. I mean, we could look at a show like Attack on Titan that made the switch to be a little bit more of a political drama like 3 or 4 seasons in, and it was still really good because they had set up this whole world and there was weight behind all the political drama. But I don't really feel that from Slime Isekai. Like they are trying to make me care about this whole empire that he is setting up, but I just don't care. It just feels like there's no stakes. Like at worst, there's bumps in the road for him, and then he's just going to keep doing whatever he wants to do. And that can work. I there are lots of other shows that have a very OP protagonist, and the show still works. But I don't think it's working for Slime Isekai, at least not for me. And I don't even completely know why. Maybe it's the combination of the multiple different things that they're trying and failing to do that the show is just so boring to me that at this point, I think I'm just gonna done. Power of God, Season 2. I have never read any manhwa whatsoever, so I feel like I have to ask to anyone that does, are the shows that are based on the manhwa just cursed or something? I have yet to see an anime based on a manhwa that wasn't mid at best. there's always so much hype whenever these shows are announced and when they're about to come out. And then I go and watch them, and it feels like there's just nothing there. Like they're, like I said, they're mid at best. And I don't know if that's just the adaptations are not good, or if I personally am just not a fan of these types of stories or something. I don't know. I would be interested to hear opinions on how well the adaptations are. With Tower of God specifically, the first season I felt was fine. Like the story was still being set up, and I've said before that I tend to give a little more wiggle room on the first season of a show just so that they can set up that story. And that's all I really got out of the first season. I mean, the characters were fine. I don't think they were terrible, but I also don't think that they were anything special. I barely remembered any of them during the second season. The music was good, and I think that was probably the best of the first season, and maybe even the best of the second season too. And with the second season, I was hoping that they would build up some of the story, and instead they pretty much just threw in a whole new cast. And let me tell you, if I wasn't really attached to the characters from the first season, I am in no way, shape, or form attached to the people they introduced for the second season. And I don't want to say that they are not building up the story at all. I mean, the story is going somewhere and is progressing a little bit, but overall, it still feels like they're trying to focus more on the foundation of the story without adding anything to it. It almost gives me the opposite problem that I have with Oshinoko, because with Oshinoko, I there is a good story, and I'm worried they're going to add to it and end up making it too complicated and just fuck up the story somehow. But with Tower of God, I feel like I'm just waiting for them to add something. Something to get me more interested in the overall story, because I don't feel like it's there just yet. And it's this weird problem because there is enough there that I can see a better story that may come from it, but it's not there yet. So I'll probably end up watching another season or two of it just to see if something actually comes out of the overall story. But honestly, as of the first two seasons, there's not really a hook to get me super interested in watching it. There's enough of a hook apparently that I'm still going to watch it, but compared to other shows that I have been actually interested in watching, this is just kind of throwing in just to see if maybe at some point it gets interesting. It's kind of the highest praise I could give it, is maybe it gets good at some point. Because right now, after season two, the show is just mid, but hopefully it gets better. My Hero Academia Season 7. This story is just about wrapped up. They'll probably have one more season, and then that's gonna be it. The biggest complaint that I have seen throughout the mini seasons is the lulls in between the big fights. The seasons where they're slowing the pace down and not a whole lot happens. It doesn't bother me as much as it does other people apparently, but I do get it on some level. Like it's hard to go from a big bombastic fight and then expecting me to care about a school festival the next season. So I get it. But now that we're getting close to the end of the story, there's going to be none of that happening. This whole season was pretty much full throttle from the beginning to the end, and next season is going to be more plus ultra and all that. And I think that's a good thing. I think My Hero Academia excels at the fight scenes and the action, and it made this season really entertaining to watch. And I imagine that next season is also going to be very entertaining as it's going to be wrapping up. But there, of course, were some talk no jutsu bullshit happening, but I read the manga, or I guess I read it. It's completed now. I read it. I already knew some of this was happening, so it just kind of is what it is. Try not to spoil anything, but one thing that I do want to comment on that actually, the anime follows the manga pretty close. Like I can't think of anything that's just completely off the wall different from the manga. So I can pretty much make a very good guess. I really doubt that they're going to change the ending on how the manga did it, and that's gonna. I'm interested to see if the anime only watchers are going to have the same reaction as the manga readers. But at the same time, I know how the internet is, and I know that most anime only watchers have probably already have that shit spoiled for them. So, because people don't know how to keep their goddamn mouth shut. But anyway, this season was good, and I imagine next season will also have a great finish. We'll see. Monogatari series off and monster season. I love the Monogatari series, and I'm always glad whenever they add in a new season. I will say that I don't think they did anything new during the season. I think they just excelled at the things that they have always excelled at. The art style is amazing, the storytelling is great, and just enjoyed the entire thing. I think that if you know the series, if you like the series at all, then this is another season that you should probably watch. And if you haven't seen the Monogatari series at all, do not start with this. Look up a list of the chronological order, in my opinion, is what you should be watching. And while I didn't enjoy this season, I don't think it was one of their better ones. The art style felt a little subdued, I think is the word I'm looking for, but maybe not. So the older seasons, there were definitely a few stylistic choices that the show pretty much bounced around between to make up the bulk of the show. But there would always be different, weirder art styles thrown in to kind of make the show, I don't want to say more chaotic, but that is kind of what I'm thinking. It gave it more personality, just having the random offshoots with different styles. And that is not really done in this season. Like they take out those edge cases and they just focus on the main stylistic choices that make up the series. So it's definitely still feels like a Monogatari series or Monogatari season, but it doesn't have the same exact feel as the previous seasons. It's not something that is just completely different that's going to throw you off, but it is something that I noticed more and more as the season went on. Like I was missing something. And the story was a little hit or miss for me. Apparently, this was an adaptation of the off season and the monster season, hence the name. But the off season was the beginning here, and they're more just side stories, which they weren't bad, but they also weren't really that amazing, in my opinion. They were fine. The monster season was the part that I was actually hooked into because it is a little more of Shinobu's backstory, and I am far more interested in that. And granted, like the entire season was still good storytelling. It was just the subject matter I was more interested in the later part of this season rather than the beginning part. So yes, this is not the best of the best as far as Monogatari goes, but it's still amazing. You should watch it. And that is everything that I watched for this season. Let me know if my opinions are shit, or more importantly, if I missed something that you think I should have watched. See ya.